Hi guys, my name is May Pineda and I am the wife of Cesar Pineda from the Farmers Insurance Cesar Pineda Agency located in South Norwalk, Connecticut. And today we're doing a casual podcast about the basics of insurance, and Cesar, the agent, will be here to answer them.
Hello.
Okay, so my first question is, what is insurance and why do I need it?
Well, insurance is the thing that would prevent you from a catastrophic financial loss if you're a victim of any type of loss to property or any type of injury through fault of somebody else. So if you're a victim of a car crash where somebody hits you, it is the insurance that they are demanded to have by law that is responsible for them paying your medical bills instead of you being just stuck with the medical bills and probably financial ruin. So it is something that we've had for hundreds and hundreds of years, that people, just believe it or not, started out with farms and trucks most of the time, where if something happened to those things were the livelihood of many people, they would lose everything. And then, some wealthy people realize, well, what if I say that if that happens, I'll reimburse you as long as you pay me a small premium. And as long as that happens, then, God forbid something happens to your farm or your truck, you won't lose everything that you've worked so hard for. So that over time evolved to everything we own, everything that we have an investment on, such as our cars and our homes and our businesses. It's a very basic thing that most people don't think about often enough.
Definitely not.
That is the thing that is really preventing you from, completely devastation, and financial ruin. So again, we're a very underappreciated industry. We also often get lumped with other types of insurance, such as health insurance, and just to make that point, we're nothing like that. Is so different, but yeah, insurance as a whole is a very diverse world, and what we concentrate here is property and casualty. Really, what we concentrate on is homes and autos and businesses and life insurance. Some of the other stuff we don't really always get too much into, but yeah, it's something that everybody has and everybody needs.
Gotcha. Okay, on to the second question. Why pick you over an online insurance or an app where I could just easily get coverage then?
Well, as I mentioned, insurance has been around for a very long time, and the norm was that you had an insurance agent, just like you have an accountant, just like you have a local attorney. You really wouldn't rely on somebody across the other side of the country to give you advice on a very local issue that you're dealing with. So my type of setup, whether a local agent is here and you could walk into their office or you could call them whenever, that's been regularly the norm. What has happened over the last few decades with the internet and technology advancements is obviously you can go yourself online to a website, bind a policy for yourself, and that's it. And then you met the minimum requirement, which is the law dictates that you have to have insurance. The big problem has always been that most people think they know more than they actually do about insurance. And so even some people who are very well educated and they understand the concept of liability and they understand the concept of what full coverage means, they don't always understand what a little number in that website means, such as a deductible or a maximum amount of coverage that they would be getting. And people, as we always tend to go for the lowest, thinking it's going to bring us the cheapest. And the fact is that sometimes that backfires. And so that's why my setup to this day hasn't gone away, because we are professionals who study this, who constantly get updated on changes happening around the area. And we focus on our local communities, because something that affects the state of New Hampshire doesn't necessarily affect the state of Connecticut as far as insurance law. So again, I think that people underestimate the service part of it and the knowledge part of it, which is something that they can't get through these websites and online companies, who really, the way that they're able to sometimes give lower rates is because they're cutting that knowledge out of the equation, and all of a sudden you're left with people who are buying policies that don't really understand what they're getting. And the problem is that when they do need to use them, they're often disappointed. And that's when we actually get a lot of clients who come to us letting us know I had a terrible experience where, I got a policy online, I got something that I didn't fully understand, and now I'm dealing with the consequences. And now I appreciate the fact that I could go to somebody with my questions and know that they're gonna either have the answers or they're gonna be able to get the actual answer instead of just guessing. So again, it's a very common thing nowadays. You could go online and get yourself a policy, but there are some horror stories that I've heard associated to that, and I think not enough people think about that as a consequence when they're shopping around for insurance.
Okay, so in that regard, my third question actually ties into your second question, which is, or to the answer to your second question, which is, what does an insurance agent do?
Well, as I said, we're like your local professional. Again, just like you have a local accountant that you would go do your taxes. Yes, you could do your taxes yourself through one of these similar, do-it-yourself kind of companies. But the fact is that you'll never really feel like, yeah, I know I got exactly what I was supposed to get. I know I got every deduction and every credit and every, anything like that. So we're very similar in that setup. And again, an insurance agent is somebody who studies this, this is our field that we...
You study your local law.
Yeah, we are licensed through the state. We have to go through periodic, education and just refreshing our knowledge and our skills. And unlike many other professions where, you have to absolutely 100% go in person, we understand that this is something that we can do over the phone, or we could do in person, or we could do, we do have the email, we do have a 1-800 number, we do have a website, we do have all these, commodities, but we still give you that personal touch. And that's why I love that my company, one of their biggest focuses is, we believe in the local agency. We believe that people understand that they much rather talk to somebody whose name they know, first of all, because most people, when they call a 1-800 number, they call a different person every single time. And sometimes they don't like them, but they don't even know their name. So they can't even make a complaint about them or talk to anybody about that person. So here we have accountability. You have a local person who understands your area and understands you, and often we become your friend, and we call you in Christmas to say Merry Christmas, or we call you in 4th of July to say Happy 4th of July, and things like that. It's just a very personal touch that is not appreciated as much as it used to, because before it was the norm. Now it's not as common. But again, my company, we truly believe that knowing somebody and knowing their name and knowing that you could just walk into an office is that peace of mind that comes with the whole concept of insurance that you can't replace through a 1-800 number or a website alone. So
definitely. So at this point, would you say, you foster connection with your potential clients and your clients?
Yeah, I mean, the advice of it too. Just the fact that I could just put things into perspective for people who probably never thought, we do live in Fairfield County and we do have a lot of luxury cars around this area.
Yeah, that's why we're expensive.
And yet they would go and choose the minimum coverage. And when they had an accident, they're told you had the minimum coverage. This is up to the amount of money that you're going to be getting coverage. Mm-hmm. They're often very upset. So yes, I've been able to advise people who are not even my clients. Like a lot of the time people are comparing, and in the process, I'm able to educate them, and I really make an effort to say, look, even if you don't get this policy with me right now, that I'm giving you advice that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you're gonna think about that in the future when you do, either have an accident or when your renewal comes and you realize, I'm really not getting what I should be. And again, that's where the local touch comes in.
Yeah. So I know I only said 3 questions, but I have a follow-up question to your first question. To the first answer, which the question was, what is insurance and why do I need it? Now the follow-up question is, there is such a bad reputation of insurance, and there's every time people, need to renew their insurance policies, etc., your first thought is always why do I even need insurance in the first place? What do you think could be done to change the perspective of insurance? Because I feel like when people think insurance, they think it's a waste of money.
Well, to put it into an example for you, if you have a fire hydrant in your home
Okay.
and you spend money to get that fire hydrant, you might look at that fire hydrant a few years later and say, oh, that's just furniture at this point, right? But the day that there's a fire and you see that fire hydrant, you're gonna be extremely happy that you paid whatever you paid for that fire hydrant, because that's gonna be the thing that's gonna save you and your family from an actual fire, hopefully. Insurance is the same concept. We have such a bad rep because of how we're portrayed in the media, how, you know, certain people make it look like we're just trying to scheme you and we're just trying to take your money and not give you coverage when it happens. And again, I do want to make a big distinction that we get mixed up between health insurance and property and casualty. My thing is mostly property and casualty, so I'm not talking about any of the other different types of insurance. But again, we have this portrayal of greedy, very, you know, looking for a loop so that we don't have to pay you kind of people. And again, I love my company because I do truly believe that Farmers Insurance is a very genuine company, where our whole motto is we've seen it, we've covered it, because it's true, because we understand that not every claim is clear cut, and then we're not just going to look for the loops to avoid paying out for a claim. If you have coverage for something, you will very likely get paid out, as long as it wasn't something like fraud or something that was obviously not correct.
Which is against the law, I might add. Fraud is against the law.
It absolutely is. But so again, I think that we get a very bad portrayal, and when somebody sees that in the media and then they go to their renewal bill, like you said, and every renewal they're like, oh, I never even had an accident, like why do I even have to pay for this? And those are the same kind of people that will go and lower their coverage and say, I never had an accident and I never will.
So,
but they will. You know?
So follow-up question. What is the reason why every renewal policy, there's like an additional fee, like they increase the price?
Yeah, well,
what is the reason for that?
That's I'm a client too, and I think about that all the time as well. But you know, looking at it from both sides is a very complicated issue, and yet you could just think about, are things worth the same now as they were 10 years ago? Are things worth now the same price today as they were 50 years ago? No, everything goes up in price. And therefore, just think about car insurance. We are talking about cars nowadays with technology like rear view cameras, sensors. We have DVD players inside the car, all this stuff that if there's an accident is gonna cost a lot of money. And then as cars get more technology, it takes more money to replace or repair those cars. So to make up for that, because it's a pool of money that we have to withdraw from, and if that pool is not big enough to pay for all these losses, then we're not collecting enough money for that pool. So that's really what it is. And I know that it's frustrating as a client to see that your policy went up, you know, $10 a month or $5 a month here or there, especially when you don't feel like that ever goes down and it always heads in the other direction. But again, it has a lot to do with the fact that we have a lot more to cover nowadays than we ever did before. And actually, believe it or not, sometimes they go the other way around and they say, hey, we had a pretty low loss ratio, so now we're going to actually split that between our clients to show our gratitude. And that's why you have things like, you know, what happened with the COVID pandemic, where we were actually able to say there's very little accidents. We understand that it's a very difficult position for our clients who don't have a job right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that to the advantage of our clients. We're going to distribute that to our clients by giving them two separate credits, one for 25%, one for 15%, which, you know, a lot of people are very happy to see that we're not just holding onto that money. We're not, again, we have this idea of a corporation being like a terrible thing and like they're just greedy and they're going to keep all their money and give bonuses to their higher ups. But with insurance, because we're a very regulated industry, it doesn't work like that. We really have to prove our rates are what they are because here's the facts. We had X amount of accidents, we had X amount of payouts, and we collected X amount of money. It didn't turn out to be enough. Now we're going to have to collect more money. And everything, every increase or decrease has to be approved by the state. So a lot of people think it's just us making up the rules, and that is not the truth. We go by what the state dictates as far as allowing us to give new discounts or as far as allowing us to lower rates or increase rates. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to this, and this is
just really the basics.
It's so much, But then when people see the media portray insurance as this evil thing, and then they see a $5 increase in their bill, they're gonna be upset. And again, I get that, but that's why you hear this from a person It's gonna make a lot more sense than if you call a call center and they sound like they have no idea what they're talking about, and
Yeah,
you
definitely.
truly feel like, why is it going up? Like, I'm not getting anything for this.
Yeah. So this also highlights initially I had a follow-up question from a third question. My third question was, what does an insurance agent do, and why can't an international 1-800 number do it? So that kind of does
Well, they
that.
do sometimes. I mean, honestly, we're all aware of outsourcing,
Yeah.
and a lot of the ways that these companies that are very, cheap sometimes are getting those prices to be so cheap is by outsourcing, removing a lot of jobs from
Local
let
communities.
alone the state,
Yeah.
like the country, and they're outsourcing to other countries for customer service and customer attention matters that really should be, a local issue. But not to knock them, because good for them, and everybody likes to pay little money, but I just want to make a point that there is a consequence for that, and often we don't think about the consequences because we don't see them directly. But there is a reason why these companies are able to do what they do, because they cut out a lot of the personal touch and a lot of the jobs
Local knowledge.
that were local, because of that kind of business, and then they distributed that to somebody else somewhere else.
Okay, well, that's to conclude the basic questions for insurance today. We'll come back next week for another set of questions, for more detailed questions, say about property and casualty insurance, and for a lot of us young people too, why do we need life insurance?
Oh, yes.
That's
a big
something
one.
that I'd like to touch with, especially for us millennials, or anyone else, Gen X, Gen Z, just future knowledge, dropping knowledge here.
All right. Great combo.
All right, till next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.